Hi there, I'm SKSOUTH. Would you like to be able to have fresh tomatoes, Romas, husky cherry, and grape cherry tomatoes, crookneck yellow squash, and zucchini fresh from your own garden like mine? Check out this video and I'll show you how. Here's how a garden starts for me. I take the lawnmower, set the blade as low as I can go, and I scrape the ground. Then I'll come in with the tiller later, till this ground up, take out the rocks, rake out all the weeds, then I'll finish filling the bed with garden soil. The tiller I'm using is a little Earthwise 8.5 amp tiller cultivator. Works real good for these small gardens. In the other videos you probably saw that I had it up in the gardens. When I'm first putting in a garden, it's easier to till it without the garden frame in the way. Now, a couple folks have gotten a hold of me to say, hey, we've got an electric tiller too, but we're having trouble getting the kind of depth you're getting. There's a little trick to that. If you look at the furrow I just cut, you'll notice in the center it's high. That's the gap between the blades where the transmission is. In order to get depth, my next cut will be moved over halfway so that that part, the transmission, will be straddling the ditch that's already cut, and that'll cut the rest of it down. And you keep doing that, alternating it back and forth, and it'll bring it all down. Also, let the tiller do the work. When you're ready to go back to the other end, just ease up on the pressure and let it pull itself back up there. You never know what you're going to find when you're tilling up a residential backyard. I just dug up a railroad spike. Okay, it should be pretty apparent that I've got a depth of about 6 to 8 inches below natural grade here. And yes, I'm doing a raised bed garden. Yes, I'm going to be putting amendments and garden soil into it. So why am I breaking down into native ground? Well, actually our native ground here is actually quite good. Despite the high limestone content that you see here in sandstone. And also, it allows for deeper root penetration. You notice the dust stopped after I went down a ways. But the main reason I stopped now is to give you a little tip. When you're using one of these cultivators, these Earthwise, you'll notice at the front and back, the plastic body is shaped. When you're pulling back, it has a tendency to pile the dirt up behind you. But you can allow the tiller to pull itself forward while you tilt it back and use it like a bulldozer to put the loose dirt back in the hole so that you can get to fresh territory. I'm going to demonstrate that now. Another railroad spike. There ain't no train tracks within 5 miles of here. Okay. That was a hard one, 6 inches. For the last couple years, Lee and I have been piling all of our vegetable waste, and whenever we grind down tree branches and stuff, right back here in this pile. It's not a traditional compost pile like you might think of. We don't water it and turn it over and that. We just let nature do its thing. But it does make good gardening soil. So I'm about to gather some up to put into the new garden. Alright, what I got there is about the equivalent of 2 1.5 cubic foot bags of garden soil if you'd have bought them at the store. I'll see you when I'm putting them in the garden. Homemade garden soil, fresh out of the compost. Beetle. Okay, I'm going to level those out, and that'll be it for today. So, here it is Saturday, and I'm back at it. First thing I'm going to show you is how I'm going to extend the watering system, and it's really not that hard to do. Anybody can do this. So, here we go. First off, we're going to talk a little bit more about this Earthwise tiller. There's a great thing you can do with this Earthwise tiller. These are the tines which do the cutting when we're gardening. Occasionally, like when I was hitting all those rocks, they dull up, so you do need to sharpen the blades. They don't have to be razor sharp, but they need a nice wedge where they can cut into the dirt easily. But when you want to do something like trench a water line, there's a real nice feature about these. It's real simple to take off one of the tines so that you can use this tiller as a trencher. Reminds me of an ice machine I was working on a couple days ago at the shop. We don't have air conditioning in our bay, so I had the ice machine outside under the canopy in the shade working on it. But I had to supply water to it with a water hose. When I got the ice machine fixed, I turned it on, and for the life of me, for the first little bit, I couldn't figure out why the water wasn't freezing. Why wasn't this ice machine making ice for me? It was just running and running and running, and I could see the refrigeration system was working great, but it's not making ice. And this happened to be one of those ice machines that has a built-in ice and water dispenser. They use them in offices. And I passed my hand accidentally in front of the water dispenser, and when the water came out and hit my hand, it was hotter than bath water. And I measured it, and the water was 140 degrees from just sitting in that green garden hose for a couple hours out in this Texas sun. So I disconnected the water hose from the ice machine, just let it run out on the ground until it ran cool again, hooked it back up, and within 2 minutes, ice machine was making ice the way it's supposed to. But that just for me reinforced why it's important to bury my water lines for my gardens. Otherwise, I'm going to have boiled vegetable plants. And just that quick, I now have a trench for my water hose. Okay, the gardens are prepped for the addition of the water hose. One thing I want to show y'all, down here, you can see that I've got the water line coming to this garden and it turns 90 degrees and go in. Well, I'm going to have to replace that with a T-fitting, and then we'll run the new one in, and then since that one's last in line, it'll have a 90 degree. I'll meet you over at the table where I'm going to put together the water system and show you how it's done. Okay, I'm using simple 1/2 inch PVC for the garden watering system. If you've never worked with PVC, it's really easy. Number one, it's easy to cut. Depending on the style you get, a PVC cutter like this will cost you at Home Depot or Lowe's or Ace Hardware anywhere from $5 to $12. It's a sharpened blade, it ratchets, and all you do to cut PVC, and this will cut up to 1.25 inches PVC, but all you do to cut PVC is lay it in there, ratchet it closed, and there you go. Really very simple. When you're going to assemble PVC joints, you need to use PVC glue and primer. The primer softens the plastic a little bit. The glue actually melts the plastic together. PVC glue is methyl ethyl ketone, MEK, and the way it works is to actually melt and fuse the plastic together when done properly. When it dries, it does form a plasticky like glue, so if you didn't have it in there good and it dried too quick, it'll still glue it together, but those joints you can later snap apart. You might have seen me doing that in some of the other videos where I had some stuff I put together real fast. But if done properly, it will actually melt it together. So what you do, you start out with your PVC primer. Give your connection a good coating. I also like to coat the outer edge. I'm going to be putting all these fittings together, so I'm making sure to coat it all. This end I primed the last time I worked on the PVC. Got to renew the primer because it's dried up solid and hard again. I have to resoften it. And to make sure that you're getting it on right to resoften it, just keep rubbing the new PVC primer on until you see the old move and fade down. Okay, when you're going to put something together with PVC, especially something small like this, I recommend you pre-fit everything first. I've already pre-fitted all, but I'm going to lay it out how I'm going to assemble it so you can see how it goes. I'm going to tie into the water line with the T. Then I'll have this neck to get me under the garden. Then I'll have a 90, which will take me up. This piece will end at another 90, which turns me into the garden, like so. Then these two, this is a screw-on coupling, which adapts my garden hoses, will be joined by this piece here. Here we go. Now when you put it together, you see it wants to push apart. If you hold it together and turn it a little bit, you'll feel it grab. That means that the plastic has melted properly. Then you can install. I'm ready to go cut the other 90 off, install this, install the extension pipe, and turn the water on. Alright, the water system's in and tested. Now, you need to put together an irrigation system with weeper hoses for this garden. What we're using is a Miracle-Gro soaker system. There's other brands of soaker hose out there, but I like the Miracle-Gro. I've got enough hose left over from other systems to do what I need, but I do need some more fittings. And each Miracle-Gro system comes with a bag of fittings. And right now, specifically what I'm looking for is male fittings with end caps. Like this. This is a male fitting with an end cap. Because we have a very specific way we're going to set up the watering for our garden. We're going to set it up where it waters each row individually under the mulch. Let me set this out of the way. So what we've done, we've taken one of these T-fittings and stuck it on an end of a hose, and it's already pre-measured to go across the garden. On the loose end, we push on a male fitting with a cap, which makes the end align for that one. Now for this garden, we're going to come out. This is a female adapter, which screws right onto the PVC fitting you saw me install earlier. In the bag I have some hose washers. So we'll install a new hose washer in it. I like to install new hose washers at the beginning of every season when I first start using them to prevent unnecessary leaks. There we go. Now, when we come out of our fitting, first thing we're going to want to do is tie into one of these T's with a short piece of hose. Now, inside the weeper hose package, there are these little blue discs. You notice it has a small hole in it. What this is a water restrictor, so that you don't get the full blast of the hose going to your weeper hoses. It's not necessary. They're weeper hoses. They're intended to weep slowly. So you take one of these restrictors, and the end where you first connect to your PVC, just push it in there on top of the gasket. And when you screw it on, it'll seat down in there. Now we're going to come out of our PVC into this. So we're going to attach this small piece of hose to it. Then we're going to immediately tee off to our first water branch. That's our first water branch. now we've got our connection and our first 2 rows. So again, I'm going to extend this out. Put a T-fitting on it. Cap on this one. This end cap came with a nice new washer. Okay, I think y'all get the idea how to put these together. I'll bring you back over at the garden when I lay it in, connect it, and run a water test on it. The watering system is in now. So this is a brand new garden with nothing planted in it. We've added a watering system. You can see I've added the weeper hoses. I'm going to turn the water on now, demonstrate how they use, because once it's mulched, like the tomato garden next to it, you won't see the watering system. The mulch also helps to prevent the water from evaporating as quick. Okay, I'm not sure how well the video shows the water coming through, so I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so we can see the water on them. There we go. It's time to plant the new garden. There you see closest to the camera a cantaloupe plant that I've been keeping ready, and next to it is a watermelon plant. Inside the white box there are my bean seeds, cucumber, and smooth yellow summer squash seeds. I've been soaking them for the last couple hours to give them a little bit of a head start. Those black poles you see standing up there in the garden are actually made for fences or ropes or whatever. I found them at Home Depot. They're about $2.50 a piece. They seem like they'd be real good to hold up the fence between the 2 rows of beans so the beans can climb the green yard fence. And I'm also going to put some up between the watermelon and the yellow squash, because I'm planting cucumbers behind the watermelon, and cucumbers, they just go crazy. So I'm hoping the cucumbers will climb the fences and stay out of my yellow squash. That's the idea. So here we go. I'm going to add a couple of these, put up some fences, and then plant these in. stuff's going to be my cantaloupe plant. Lots of roots out on that plant. I'm going to try to direct these to grow out this way onto that part of the lawn. Basically, the garden is their nutrient bed, and they can grow out on the lawn all they like because there's nothing there for them to hurt. Watermelons and cantaloupes need a lot of space. And this watermelon variety is Jubilee. As you can see, there's lots of roots. It's ready to rock and roll. In all actuality, in each of these pots, there's 3 or 4 plants. Alright. Okay, now that everything's planted, I'm going to water it all in. Nice thing about this fence, it doesn't block the water spray. I can spray right through it. and our new garden is planted. Once your plants are in and healthy enough where you can cover the bottoms, it helps to mulch in your gardens. Number one, keeps you from having to weed, or at least weed as much. Chain grass we got here in Texas finds its way through the mulch. It loves the water. But I'll let you all look at how Lee is mulching in our tomato garden. She'd originally mulched them in with a little bit of hay, and now she's coming back with some real mulch from Austin, Texas. This is So you having fun with the mulch?
Yes.
Okay, the last subject I'm going to talk about in this video is fertilizing. When you use garden soils out of the bag, especially Miracle-Gro, it tells you right on the bag, those already have fertilizer in them, and they're good for 4 to 8 to 12 weeks. So you don't need to worry about fertilizing right away in a new garden like the one you just saw me plant. But now here, you see I've got my zucchini and yellow squash here, and I've been getting squash and zucchini from them. And you might be able to even see some of the new yellow squash that are coming up. I already picked today. These are heavy feeders of nitrogen. So what I'm going to use today is Pennington's Ultra Green. It's a 10-10-10 plant food, which means it's 10 nitrogen, 10 phosphorus, and 10 potassium. What I understand is nitrogen helps with good healthy plant growth, and with the zucchinis it helps to put out the fruits. So right now I'm going to add this 10-10-10 to this garden. Per the instructions on the bag, this is a dry fertilizer, pelletized, and it says for this size garden I need to use 3/4 of a cup, because it tells you how many square feet and what amount. And what you do is just sprinkle it on and rake it in. At the same time, while I'm raking, I'm going to be cultivating a little bit and getting some of the weeds out. Here we go. Here's a little something I'd like to share with y'all that I realized yesterday when I was working out here. Notice how on the right hand side of this garden the yellow zucchini plant, or the yellow squash plants, are so much bigger than the ones towards the back over there. Well, that's part of the reason why I planted more yellow squash in the other garden. My big tree, the big beautiful pecan tree, right here, shadows that portion of the garden every morning. Whereas over there where the new garden is, doesn't get shadowed at all. Okay, I need to reset up to show you all about liquid fertilizer, and then that's going to finish this video up. Here's the main connection for my watering system. You can see we come out of the spigot to a Y. One side feeds the garden hose for any hand watering. The other side on the short green hose goes to my Orbit timer. That timer is multiple function setting. You can set it to water numerous times per day by the hour, or like I've got it set, twice a day, every 12 hours. And you can also control the water interval. I've got it set for a 30-minute run. Anytime I want, I can come over and flip it to on and turn it on and put it to the timer, and it'll time itself back out and still come back on at the new interval when it's supposed to. Then right there below that, what you see is a Miracle-Gro feeder. Below the Miracle-Gro feeder, you see a branch of PVC going off to the left. That feeds the shaded garden, the cucumber and green beans over there. Then you see it continues down to the ground and disappears going behind me. That's what's feeding the other 6 gardens. Well, it's really easy for me to feed all the gardens at once by using Miracle-Gro liquid feed. And this is really simple to use. All you do is take the cap off, screw the bottle into the feeder, tilt it up to use. Right now this is on strictly water, so I'm going to turn this on. My timer is just turned on. It's now watering all the gardens. I'm going to set it back to the 30-minute interval. Now, depending on how much of the fertilizer I want to use at a time, is how I can rotate this dial. If I want it to use just a little bit at a time, you can hear it metering. If I want it to use a lot, or if I want it to just water, I want to flush the lines. Now it's done taking fertilizer. I can tilt it back, unscrew it, because the valve is now closed, put the lid back on, and just like that, I added a couple ounces of fertilizer to my whole garden. Now normally, you follow the instructions and let it run by the square footage you have. With the square footage of gardens I have, I use half a bottle at a time. So I let half a bottle go, then I stop the bottle and go. But I've recently fertilized, so I'm not going to fertilize again today. This is just to show y'all how easy it is to do. Well, I hope you enjoyed this gardening video. I plan to make more in the future as subjects come up, and I'd be more than happy to cover any questions y'all might have. I'd like to apologize in advance for the dogs that you'll hear in the video. Every time the owners come home next door, they get real happy, and well, that's a good thing. The dogs are happy to see their owners. So I put up with it. Hope you all had a great Father's Day and enjoy this video. Thanks. SK out.